Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the I Will Teach You a Language podcast, coming to you live, not live, actually, coming to you from London on a freezing cold, rainy day. It's one of these days. You know how London has this kind of mythical reputation of just being covered in a sheet of permanent fog? And you know how that's totally not true? Well, today it actually is true, and there's this layer of miserable fog just hanging over the town like a blanket. And it's refusing to lift, which is weird, because sometimes you get that in the morning, but you don't. But then it kind of lifts after mid-morning it's kind of gone, and it's a bright blue sunny sky, or a damp grey sky, but the fog lifts. Anyway, don't know what's going on today. It's one of those, you kind of expect Jack the Ripper to jump out from behind a tree or something like that. So I'm kind of sitting here warming my hands with a cup of tea, trying to get myself in a suitable state to record a podcast for you. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. All right then, without any further ado, let's get into today's question from Brendan.
Hi, Ollie. My name's Brendan, and I'm currently learning Greek. One of the things I find really frustrating is a lot of the materials, in fact, most of them, make heavy use of romanization of the Greek alphabet. And I've seen this before with Japanese and Chinese and other non-Roman alphabet languages. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on romanization and if there's any place for it in language learning.
Hey, Brendan, thank you very much for taking the time to leave the question and to call in, as it were. Romanization, okay, cool. I like new topics. This hasn't come up before on the podcast, I don't think. All right, so romanization, good thing or bad thing? Well, think of it like this. In an ideal world, we would be able to read and write our target language from the beginning, and we would just be in kind of one long, happy process of reading and writing, and everything we do can be in the target language from the start. But obviously, that's not the case, and there are lots of languages around the world which don't use the Roman alphabet. Greek is an example, Russian is another, and then the further east you travel, or I guess west if you're in the US, you start to get to Asian languages where it's a whole different ballgame altogether. Japanese, Chinese, and then you've got Arabic. The list is long of languages which don't use the Roman alphabet. And so just for those people who might not be completely sure what we're talking about here with romanization is what you do when you take a language with a different alphabet and you represent those sounds in the Latin alphabet, the Roman alphabet, the one that we use in English, so that we can understand. So, for example, in Chinese, you have pinyin, and pinyin is, well, if you've ever seen Chinese writing, you know that it's not, it's no walk in the park, right? Not only is it difficult, not only is it a totally different system, but it's not phonetic either. So you can know a character, but that doesn't tell you how to pronounce that character. Okay, so it's like a double whammy. And so with pinyin, what they do is they write the kind of English equivalents of those sounds, and sometimes there is an equivalent. Sometimes it's kind of the same, sometimes it's not. I mean, obviously in Chinese, for example, you've got tones and different sounds, but broadly speaking, you can kind of get close enough so that a newbie in the language can actually, can read and write using this kind of English type version of the language. So, that is what romanization is. And as you've noticed, Brendan, often learning materials use this romanization. And why do they do that? So you're learning Greek, and you obviously, I imagine that you've been tackling the Greek alphabet, right? And you want to find materials that are kind of at your level, that are in Greek and that aren't romanized, right? Because you want to immerse yourself in the alphabet. So why do publishers choose to use the Roman alphabet? Why do they use romanization? Well, think of it from the publisher's point of view. If you're going to teach someone Greek in a self-study book, then, and you want them to learn the Greek alphabet, then the first thing you've got to do is to teach them the Greek alphabet, and everything that comes after that relies on the student having studied and learnt the Greek alphabet. For a publisher, the trouble with that is that you simply can't make that assumption. Because what's going to happen is a whole bunch of people, a massive proportion, maybe even the majority of people, are not going to take the time to learn the Greek alphabet. And so the rest of the book and all the learning materials that come after that are completely useless because they haven't learned the alphabet. So from a kind of commercial point of view, as a publisher who's creating materials and textbooks and stuff like that, they have to use romanization because you've got to cater for the lowest common denominator. You've got to assume that people are either unwilling to learn the alphabet or don't want to or haven't got the time or something like that. So the easiest decision of all is to use romanization. Now, I don't know Greek, so I don't know exactly what the ramifications are, but as I understand it, it is similar to, say, Russian in the sense that you've got a new alphabet to learn, but it's not particularly difficult. You've got 24 letters in the Greek alphabet. So again, if we compare it to Russian or Arabic or, as I understand it, to Korean as well, which I believe is fairly simple to learn the alphabet of, you've got a task which is achievable. It's the kind of task where you say, okay, if I'm going to learn this alphabet, I could probably do it in a few days or at most in a few weeks. Now, a different question is how long it takes you to get comfortable using that, but it's definitely doable and shouldn't be too hard, right? And now, obviously, difficult, it's very relative, isn't it? But compare that to Chinese for a minute, where you've got thousands and thousands of characters to learn, which are not where there's no alphabet where you can spell words out. You have to learn each character individually. That is a difficult writing system to learn. Okay, that is hard. Something like Greek with 24 letters in it is achievable, and so I think us language fans, people who enjoy language learning, would look at a challenge like learning the Greek alphabet and say, okay, I can do that. So now give me materials in Greek. And what would happen then? Your experience would be, all right, it's a little bit tricky at the beginning. I'm a bit slow reading at first, but before long, within the space of a few months, I'm actually up and running. I can read stuff in Greek. Or I might not know the vocabulary word, but I can at least read it and spell it out. And this is by far the best way of doing things because then you just get immersion in the real language right away. And one of the problems with romanization, and this varies from language to language, one of the problems of romanization is that you cannot always accurately represent the sounds. So romanization often is not accurate. Again, I don't speak Greek, so I can't say for sure. But the languages that I've studied, which often do use romanization, and I'm thinking in terms of Cantonese with its 6 tones, Thai, very similar to Cantonese, lots of tones, but also different sounds. Arabic doesn't have tones, but it's got different letters. There is no direct representation of those letters in the Roman alphabet. So you've got to have like a system. You've got to create a system to sort of represent these different sounds. And people end up tying themselves up in all kinds of convoluted knots by, like for example in Cantonese, people use the Yutping system tags a number onto the end of the romanized word to represent the tone. I mean, it's all silly. But the thing is that with a difficult language like, say, Cantonese, or Chinese, where the reading is not easy and takes many years to do, you've really got no choice. Otherwise, people would spend 2 years learning to read and write intensively before they could even start learning the language. So it's from language to language. The specific decision-making criteria do change. I think the harder the language, the more complex the writing system of the language, the more necessary that the romanization is. I would probably argue that when it comes to something like Greek or Russian or Korean, where the writing system is fairly straightforward, if it were me teaching that course, I would force you to learn to read and write right from the beginning, because it's a relatively small amount of work, and but then the benefits are huge. You get straight to the correct pronunciation. There's just no need to use romanization when you can learn the alphabet from the beginning. But again, if you think about it from the perspective of publishers who are producing self-study books, you can see why they choose to use that romanization, because again, they've just got to cater to that. We've got to make the assumption that the person using it is not going to learn the alphabet. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question, Brendan. I mean, in a nutshell, I'd say with simpler languages, avoid it like the plague. For harder languages, you probably need it to get started. But again, like having learnt and struggled with many Asian languages, what I would say is with romanization, yeah, use it to get started because you need to. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere. But I would say right from the beginning, you should learn to write. Absolutely. And I've got to change my tune a bit on this, actually, because back in the day when I first started learning Cantonese, I very much took the approach of no, I just want to start speaking, I don't need the writing for that. And I think that's true. And that's fine to kind of get you up to an intermediate level of speaking, to get you up. And if all you want to do is to be able to chat and, have a nice conversation, that's fine. But the trouble is you very quickly hit a ceiling where without being literate in the language, you can't read. And when you can't read, you really kind of cut your learning options off. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on romanization. It's actually been on my mind, actually, because next year I am releasing new beginner courses in a bunch of different languages. So we have Spanish Uncovered and German Uncovered at the moment, which are my beginner courses in Spanish and German. Coming very soon are Italian and French, already in production with some incredible teachers. I've spent so long searching for just the right teachers to work with on these courses, and I found a couple of incredible teachers who I can't wait to introduce you to. But we're also doing Japanese, Chinese, Russian, and Arabic Uncovered. And so this whole thing about the script is very much on my mind, because I have this very dilemma. Let's say that you would like to learn Arabic with me. Then I would say, great, good choice. But then I've got this dilemma of, okay, like, do I teach you to read and write from the beginning? And if so, I need you to be comfortable with the fact that we're going to spend a fair bit of time learning to read and write at the beginning before we get on to anything else. And I've got to be confident that you're going to do that. And if you don't do it, or you let that kind of stall you, or you take too long over it and you never really get through it, and then the whole course that comes afterwards is wasted, because you're never going to get to it. And that's particularly important with Chinese and Japanese. Japanese has got 3 alphabets, or 3 scripts, I should say. Chinese just has 1, but it's a very difficult one. So what do we do there? Like, I can't spend 2 years teaching you Chinese intensively, reading and writing. We have to start learning. That's the whole point. So I'm really kind of grappling with these issues right now, and it's by no means straightforward. But I think certainly for Arabic and Russian, we will tackle the writing system right at the beginning, because we don't want to be using romanization for those when the alphabet itself is straightforward to learn. So I'll update you on that. That's probably a topic which could do with some further discussion. And when I get to a point where I've made my decisions about how we're going to handle the script in our new Uncovered courses, I'll come back on and let you know. All right, Brendan, thank you for your question. If you would like to ask me a question, please go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/ask to do that. And at the end of every show, I like to leave you with a resource of some kind on the topic of the show. And today, I would like to point you in the direction of my friend Judith's new books called Script Hacking. Judith Meyer, she's a fantastic German polyglot. She's just released a bunch of books called Script Hacking, where she kind of teaches you her shortcuts through the writing systems of different languages. I think there are 4 books. I will link to those in the show notes. So if you'd like to take a look at those, which I highly recommend, because she's fantastic, then please go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 290. That's iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 290. Thanks for listening. See you back in the next episode of the podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And here at Story Learning, everything that I do is powered by stories, whether that's writing books, teaching lessons, crafting courses. My mission is to help everyone succeed at learning a new language through the power of story. And we now have comprehensive language courses in over 15 languages, from Spanish to French, Korean to Japanese, and across all levels from beginner to mastery. And you can take a 7-day free trial of any of these programs by visiting storylearning.com/courses. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these courses over the last 10 or so years, and we've helped tens of thousands of new students achieve their dreams of learning a new language, all through the power of story. So go ahead and take a free trial. There's no commitment. You can try out our method for free, see if this can also be the breakthrough for you that it's been for so many other people. storylearning.com/courses.